Hello, my name is Ricardo Castellini and this is the third video of our media literacy series. Last week I discussed how we deal with information on a daily basis, especially information that we encounter in the digital world. So the focus was on ourselves. Today I'm going to change the focus to the technologies themselves and talk about how the internet and some of the digital media platforms operate. I just want to remind you that this series emphasizes the critical aspect of media literacy, but that doesn't mean that there are not benefits in the use of digital media technologies. On the contrary, our lives have immensely benefited in many ways and levels from the development of these new technologies and systems of communication. So here in this series, you're seeing one aspect of media literacy, which is of course very important and urgent. But don't forget that media literacy is not only about critically analyzing the media, it involves much more than that. Also, as it is impossible within our time frame to cover all the aspects involved in how the internet and the digital media platforms work, I chose three aspects that I think are the most important ones for our series, which are data, business model, and structure and design. The internet is populated with millions of websites, but I'm sure you have the ones you visit more often than others. It can be a news website, the blog of your favorite artist, a social media platform, a search engine, a video sharing platform, etc. Even though the internet can be described as a free space where anyone can go and set up their own website, some tech giants dominate this space. For example, if you want to search for something, even though there are few platforms to do that, it's very likely that you're going to use Google, which has over 90% of the world's market share. And Google, or Alphabet, its mother company, also owns YouTube, which is simply the second most visited website in the world. Alphabet also owns Android, an operating system. Android and iOS, owned by Apple, another tech giant, jointly have 99% of the mobile operating system market share worldwide. Facebook, the world's largest social media platform, has 2.7 billion users. This means that 1 in 3 people on this planet are on Facebook. And Facebook also owns Instagram, another very popular social media platform, and also WhatsApp, the world's #1 messaging app. This looks like a lot of concentrated power, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Of course, there are other platforms, companies and services that are very important. Some of them directly and others indirectly involved with technology, such as Amazon, Netflix, Twitter, Microsoft, and so on. And you know what's common to all these companies? Data. More specifically, your data. Probably the most precious thing for all the tech companies I mentioned before is people's data. And we can say that there are 3 different types of data that these companies collect. The first one, known as personal data, includes personally identifiable information that you give to services when, for example, you fill out forms. So you give your name, you give your address, your mobile number, your date of birth, etc. It also includes non-personally identifiable information, such as your IP address or the cookies stored in your web browser. The second one is known as engagement data. This data is collected when you access an app or a website and interact with it. So the company will know how many times you visit a page, for example, or when you comment or share a post. And the third type of data is called behavior data, which reveals some underlying patterns of your usage. This can include, for example, some of your repeated actions, how you click, scroll, or move the mouse on the screen, how you look at the screen, your attention, your focus. It tries to understand your behavior, your feelings, your emotions. Even though there are ways of preventing companies from accessing most of our data, which by the way, it's going to be the topic of our workshop this Wednesday, the 11th of November, usually we don't give too much attention to that. So every time you go online, these tech companies get to know a little bit more about you. They know your location, they know places you like to visit, products and services you spend money on, types of people you prefer to be with, who your friends and family members are, and even how much you like them. Everything you do online is being monitored, tracked, and measured. And in this way, tech companies can better understand who you are, how you feel, what you like. With your data, they can even begin to build models to predict your actions. But why is this so important for them? In order to understand the importance of your data for these companies, we need to understand at least a little bit how they operate as a business. And here my focus will be on social media platforms and search engines such as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Google. The business model is quite complex, so today I'm going to give a brief description of it, and I will come back to this topic again in the next videos as we discuss the production of online content and the role of the news industry in the information age. As you know, you can use all these platforms for free, right? So if you're not paying for the content they provide, we can generally say that they're not selling any content to you. The content is there, you just go and access it. However, as with any other company, their main goal is still to make profit. So if you are not the customer, who is it? Advertisers. And what do they sell to advertisers? Well, they sell you. Or maybe we could say they sell your attention. You probably have already heard the expression, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. And this is not a new business model. Do you know that local free newspaper handed out on the streets? That's the same model. You don't pay for that newspaper because advertisers are paying the newspaper to publish their ads, which will be viewed by you. So again, they're selling your attention to advertisers. What's different in this model used by tech companies is the complexity of the structure behind digital media platforms and how they can use your data in much more effective ways. And that's why your data is so important to them. When advertisers go to that local free newspaper, they are giving some information about the newspaper's reader's profile, which is usually collected through surveys and interviews. So the advertisers learn, for example, that the newspaper's readers are comprised of, let's say, 60% women, 40% men, 25% are over 30 years of age, 70% live in city center, 20% belong to the middle class, 15% do exercises 3 times a week, and so on. With this information in their hands, advertisers will check if the newspaper's reader's profile match their target audience, and then decide whether or not they're gonna put the ad on the newspaper. With digital platforms, it works in a very similar way. However, the amount and variety of information they have about you is much larger, and the way this model is organized and offered to advertisers is much more complex. Tech companies can provide advertisers not only with basic information about age, gender, social class, and hobbies from their users. They can give advertisers much more detailed information about you, such as, for example, the type, size, color, and price range of the car you would like to buy, the type of music you like to listen to when you are not feeling well, how much time you spend in the gym with your best friend on weekends, how much money you spend on electronics in the first week after you receive your monthly salary. The more information they have about people, the more they can segment their users into very particular categories. In this way, they can provide advertisers with something that 2 decades ago would be considered a dream by any marketeer in the world: certainty. Advertisers now can segment their target in a way never imagined before and plan out their campaigns with much more precision and confidence. So in order for this business model to work, the digital platforms have to find a way to collect as much data as possible from their users. And to do so, they have to compete for your attention. They have to make sure you stay connected and interact with the platforms as much as possible. And this requires a very attractive online environment. The digital platforms are structured and designed so that they keep your attention for the longest possible time, and also to make you interact with their features. Remember, the more you interact, the more they can learn about your tastes and preferences. There are many elements involved in the structure and design of these platforms, and probably the most important and popular one is the algorithm. An algorithm is basically a sequence of instructions programmed to perform a certain action. For example, social media algorithms are programmed to determine which content you're going to see based on your preferences. And that's the reason, according to tech companies, why they collect your data, to provide you with a personalized experience. And we can't deny that they actually do that. The content you see on your timeline has been carefully tailored to you. For example, I love football and Facebook knows that, so my timeline is always flooded with videos about football. And the same happens on Google. Google knows me. So every time I'm searching for something, it's going to show me links based on my personal preferences. This means that all of us will get a different experience when we access these platforms. If you and your closest friend type the expression media literacy education on Google, you are probably going to get different results because Google has stored different information about your personal preferences. And what's the problem with that? The problem is that if you're just going to get content that matches your personal preferences, you'll have a very poor and limited experience online. So we end up in a kind of echo chamber or filter bubble whereby we are isolated from ideas that do not correspond to our set of preferences. In the case of football videos, this might not be a big issue. But when it comes to more complex subjects, such as politics, for example, this can have very bad consequences, such as polarization and fanaticism. If you only get one side of the story, you won't be able to get the big picture. And without getting the big picture, your understanding of the reality around you will be severely undermined. Remember confirmation bias from the last video? Now combine confirmation bias with the filter bubble and you have the perfect storm. Our own minds want to interpret information in a way that confirms our beliefs. And the social media platforms give us information that conforms to our preferences and confirms our beliefs.
Wow!
If you are not aware of that, you end up living in your own world, completely disconnected from reality. What you see on your timeline, and no matter on which social media platform you are, it's not the real world, it's just a tiny representation of it. In fact, it's just a personalized virtual world made especially for you, to make you feel welcomed, to make you feel good. In this particular world, almost everyone agrees with you, and your convictions and values seem to be universal. But they are not. This is just an illusion, and a dangerous one. The best way of learning and making sense of the world around us is by challenging our own ideas all the time, so that we are exposed to new ideas and have the chance to reflect on our own arguments and opinions. And algorithms are just one element of the structure of these digital platforms. All the features that you see in these online environments have been carefully designed to keep your attention and to make you interact as much as possible. Pulling down the screen to refresh and get new content, colorful notifications to make you check your phone all the time, photo tagging to increase your number of clicks, friends' recommendations to grow your network and as a consequence to grow your interaction. The basic idea behind this structure is to give a stimulus that will generate a reaction. And this reaction is all that the digital platforms want from you. The rest they do by themselves. So the crucial question is, who is choosing? You or the machine? Remember, social media platforms and search engines are much more than technology tools. They are cultural forms that shape the content they provide and the way you interact with this content. In the next videos, I will focus more on the content that has been produced in the digital world, But I will always come back to the structure and design of the digital media platforms and even provide a few more details about how they operate. Next week, the topic will be toxic content, bad producers, bad consequences. See you guys there.